I challenge you, anyone who's watching this who's never driven a Mark I Volkswagen, go find one, especially modified with a little bit more power, to find a more fun car. For professionally, I've driven 3,000 different cars in my career, and then probably another 500 or something, for fun. And I don't think I've ever encountered anything as fun as this car.
9 million. It's a pretty big number. Sierra Leone and Switzerland each have a population of around 9 million people. £9 million will probably get you a flat in London, albeit a small one. That's how many Renault 5s were ever built. Ish. Whilst it shares most of the form and the construction of the ubiquitous hatchback of the 20th century, this one is a bit special. It never took the lion's share of sales at only 160,000 units. Whilst the standard models became disposable, this one became a collectible, the GT Turbo. The name is pretty self-explanatory. It's a 5 with a turbo. Job done, right? Well, not quite. You see, the GT Turbo was something of an outlier, not just in its class, but in the automotive landscape at the time. Today, turbochargers are nothing special. In fact, it's found in almost every single engine bay. To explain further, I've hired some men.
With a turbocharger. Now this is a very simple piece of equipment when you boil it down to its main components. Exhaust gas from the engine blows this turbine, which is connected to a shaft, which in turn spins this compressor. That allows more ambient air to be sucked in from the outside world and thrown into the combustion chamber. The more dense mixture of air and fuel means that more torque and power can be made, which makes your Renault 5 go faster. Still with me? Good.
Today, there are so many turbocharged engines on the market that the technology is nothing to shout about or even mark out with an additional badge. There's only a handful of non-turbo engines available to buy in 2025, but 40 years ago, it was the other way around.
So strapping a couple of fans into a snail-shaped housing allows this 1.4 litre 4-cylinder engine to develop 115 brake horsepower and 170 newton meters of torque. But it doesn't all come at once, as I shall now try to demonstrate. Right, you will join me on this journey. This is the first time I'm going to launch the car, okay? Alright, let's go. First. That's when the turbo kicks in, just after 3,500 RPM. Oh wow, 115 brake horsepower. By any standards isn't a lot of power these days, but when you take into consideration the power to weight ratio in this thing, it's really quite impressive. It's like when you're trying to turn your gas cooker on. You know the flame's about to ignite, but you just don't know when it goes tick, 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 and then there's a sudden explosion. There it is. Despite its age, it's a 1987 Renault 5, this one, which happens to be the same year I was born. So at almost 40 years old, you could say the car's reaching its peak, but more importantly, it feels confidence inspiring. This is when the fun starts. So much grip, so easy to place, so much boost, so much torque. It is an absolute delight. Here we go, 3,500 revs, turbo kicks in, all the way up to 5,500 RPM, sports exhaust is burbling away behind me, and I feel like I am flying. And because of the way that this car reacts to your every input, you're forever just wanting to send it up the gears, and let that turbo keep doing its thing, and then work your way back down again. You almost want a spaghetti kind of road, so you can just constantly be going third, fourth, fifth, back down to fourth, back down to third, back down into second, put your foot down, wait for that turbo to kick in. It's light, it's nimble, it's reactive. There's things flying all over the place, but that's fine. And there's loads of things in here which I'd imagine someone born early 2000s probably wouldn't know what it was. This. Do you know what that is? Or a choker. What a beautifully crafted instrument cluster I have in here. It's dimly lit, so it's very romantic. I've got my speed, I've got my rev counter, I've got oil, water, fuel gauges, but most importantly, I've got a turbo gauge, which lets me know exactly when the turbo kicks in. Not that I need a visual representation, because my God, do you feel the turbo kicking in? But quite cool to have. The Audi S2 Coupe video, which we reviewed at the start of the month, was also turbocharged, but that was demonstrative of how subtle a turbocharger can be incorporated into the overall mechanics of a car. Whereas in this, it's a damn sight more pronounced. And partly to do with the car's weight. This weighs around 830 kilograms, giving it just under 140 brake horsepower per ton. So what contributes to those boosty sensations is the car's weight and its small footprint, which has other benefits like acceleration, fuel efficiency, throw-aroundability, as well as placement on the road, and its sheer get up and go factor. Coming up to a roundabout, down into seconds, and let's see how it grips. A bit of torque steering there, but it's letting you know it's alive. I've probably repeated it a number of times now in the other videos. If you have been watching Heritage Month this month, just the analogness is a joy in itself. And it reminds me of something as analog as this. This is a Yashica film camera, which I picked up from a charity shop, and it's fully functioning, and it doesn't need any batteries to do anything. It is 100% mechanical. Listen to this. And that's how you wound the film up, and then you select your shutter speed, etc., and then it's just oh so satisfying. One of the overarching sensations that you get when you drive cars such as this, or the Toyota Corolla, which we drove recently, and the Audi S2 prior to that, is how analog everything feels, and the sensation of operating machinery. What we package as driving, but it makes you think, like, how much driving do we actually do? And I remember reading these messages behind medicinal packaging: do not operate heavy machinery. And I used to think, who's that for? Tractor drivers? Yeah, maybe. More likely this: operating machinery, the gear changes, the clutch, the accelerator, the brake, the steering, knowing that there are no aids that are going to come to your rescue if you get any of it wrong or you don't pay attention. But when you do dial in and you really start operating the vehicle, it's just the best reward there is. I really thought I was going to think long and hard about which one of these three cars, four if you count the 1987 Porsche 911 Carrera, which we reviewed a year or so ago, I thought I'd be really stretched to decide which would be my favourite. The 911 has my heart, but I am most impressed, and this has put a smile. Oh, the Toyota was cool. I have to say, this is a sensational bit of kit. I'm really struggling here. Maybe I was right thinking that I was going to struggle, because I really am. And that is a massive compliment to the Renault 5, because the Porsche was magnificent. The Toyota had so much character. That engine, my God. And the Audi was so impressive because it was like a modern day car. There wasn't anything to suggest that it was almost 30 years old. But beyond just the boosty sensations, there's plenty more to remind you that you're driving a turbo model. For instance, we have the GT Turbo badging, which clearly says turbo. The number plate on this one ends in O. like turbo. We have, albeit an aftermarket cannon, slightly larger than the standard one you would get with this Phase 1 model, but we have this diffuser-like finish at the bottom of the bumper. We have a red stripe which runs alongside the bumper and the sides of the car. Along with that, we have the slightly widened arches. Along the side, we have this makeshift air vent looking detail on the rear wheel arch, which on the Phase 2 was smoothed out. Got this gradient effect on the sticker that runs alongside of the car, which reminds me of the casing that you used to get on VHS tapes. And of course, last but not least, there's the GT turbo badge at the front. Well, that thing, I'll link that on the screen now for you. But what about when you're driving the Renault 5 normally without relying on the boost of the turbo? Well, it's incredibly civilized, and yes, there are some squeaks and creaks and other questionable sounds coming from various different places, but it's almost 40 years old. It's French built. What's been most surprising to me is the comfort levels. When you get in such a small car, you think you're going to be shaken and stirred all over the place, but actually the seats are so well padded, they feel like Recaro seats, but more comfortable. I'm being hugged. They're soft, they're supple, and even the ride, it's beautifully poised. The gears are incredibly easy. It's third, fourth, fifth, back to third. Whether you're driving it dotting in and around town, briskly on some back roads, or quickly in areas where you can, it rewards you regardless of your driving style. That's how much character, that's how much personality this car has, and I guess it's no secret why this formula has been such a massive success for Renault 30-40 years down the line with their new EV Renault 5. Prior to its recent comeback in the form of an electric vehicle, the 5 was replaced by the Clio. The Clio's performance lineage speaks for itself. You had the Clio Williams, the 172, the 182, the V6. Although its physical attributes changed, its lineage remained strong. And it wasn't like the 5 Turbo was without competition. We had the homegrown 205 GTI, which still to this day is widely regarded as a true icon from the same era. I obviously can't speak for the whole community of Renault 5 owners, right? I've only had the car for half a day. But what I can say is that I'm so sure and I'm so confident that the owners of these cars get excited about taking it out and driving it every time without fail. Doesn't matter if they've owned it for a decade and done 100,000 miles, they probably get just as much fun out of it as the day they bought it. It really doesn't matter how much horsepower this car has or what the 0 to 62 mile an hour is. 7.5 seconds if you're wondering, but none of that stuff matters, and I promise you, just doesn't. Its fun factor, its joy factor is not to be underestimated by any stretch. It is marvelously fun to drive.
Having spent a little bit of time behind the wheel of a Mark 1 Golf GTI, I can safely say, Mr. Camisa, the Renault 5 wins.
Some rivalries never relent. The small hot hatch market now uses electric motors and turbo sounds are synthesized. Peugeot are bringing an E208 GTI to market, and the new Renault 5 has a hot variant too. It just so happens to be called the A290, but the ethos lives on.
I might have been a bit premature. That's what she said. Beautiful.